of disorder.
Now we're going to start recording our meeting. Welcome, everybody. I see that we have a quorum, and we will have members of the public joining us. We have 3 public hearings scheduled this evening, and we will begin those. The first one is scheduled at 5:45, which is 13 minutes from now, and we're going to try and do a few things in that 13 minutes until the gong strikes to begin the hearing. First of all, we would like to get the March 4th minutes from our last meeting approved. Thank you, Emily, for preparing those. And I think it's been in our meeting package. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 4th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second, with or without edits?
I'll second.
Steve?
Yes.
You're the perfect person.
Second.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor of approving the March 4th minutes as is? Bill?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
And
Aye.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Belated yes. I didn't get my yes in.
Oh, I did. I got my Steve in, but
You got your Steve in, but I didn't get my yes in.
oh, okay. And the chair votes yes, and I think that's unanimous, and we have everybody here. Great. The next thing I'd like to do, again, watching the clock closely, is talk a little bit about our upcoming schedule. We had a joint hearing scheduled for April 30th with the planning board on the article dealing with the zoning of 26 Pleasant Street. That article is no longer being offered for action. There's an agreement to postpone it, subject to a further look by the owner, the developer, and the planning board, unrelated to affordable housing. So those of you that were asked and planning to attend that, you're now relieved of that responsibility. We are looking at meetings. We normally meet the first Wednesday of the month, which would be the 6th of May. I've discussed this with Emily, and unless there's any objection, what we want to propose is there's no burning business item that requires a vote or action on the part of the HAB in that short of a time frame. And we're dealing with first the election, and then everybody's very busy with town meeting. And so we're going to suggest that our next business meeting be Wednesday, the 3rd of June. The only thing that occurred to me, and I spoke with Emily just a short while ago about this, is we will have 3 votes tonight to take a public position in writing for a town meeting. My suggestion would be that I'll work with Emily to get a brief write-up on all of those, and that then she circulate it to have members for any comment, but not a group discussion. We think it's going to be pretty straightforward, and unless people feel strongly that we need a meeting just to do that, recognizing we will have had the public hearing and the vote on the 3 articles. Is that okay, the way I'm describing it with everybody?
Fine with me.
Great. Okay. And what many, if not all of you know, at least HAB members, is that one amongst us is, after many years of terrific service and dedication, not only to the Housing Authority, but to the HAB, Mike is retiring, and officially this is Mike's last meeting with us, and I can be the first to, at least in a public forum, offer my thanks and gratitude, certainly for not only the HAB, on the HAB's sake, but Mike, you've provided me always available and wise counsel from your experience, which is far richer than mine in so many areas of affordable housing. But if Mike, others want to we're going to have an opportunity with an informal gathering that you know about on May 6th to have more time with Mike in a social setting. But Mike, do you want to comment at all at this point for the HAB? For the record, you're being recorded.
Well, thank you, Roger. It's been a real pleasure. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how many years I've been on the HAB. I know it's over 20 at this point, but I think we have accomplished a lot during that period. And I think the only people who have been on with me have been you and Steve during that period.
All three of us
You've
had
been
a
with
lot more hair when we first met. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And it's really been a great honor. We have really, I think the board has accomplished a great deal. I will miss these policy discussions, and but I think I guess Jonathan may move over to the BHA, so you'll have another candidate taking his place here. But it's been a great 20 plus years, and I
Wow.
will probably still be watching now and then.
You didn't have to go the hard fought political campaign coming through the trenches like Jonathan is getting elected, right? You've had a different lane to be on the authority, as I recall.
Yes, yeah.
Jonathan, any words of wisdom as you're anticipating, in some sense replacing Mike, but not in a total sense for
Well,
sure.
Mike is irreplaceable, so I don't have any sense of doing that. I am really grateful for all of the contributions Mike has made, both to the HAB, in my time on the HAB, and certainly on the BHA. Rumor has it that I'm unopposed in my election campaign, so I'm expecting that on May 5th I will absent a unexpected, revolt or write-in campaign against me. I expect I will be joining the BHA, and then it will, I think, be up to the BHA commissioners whether to appoint me as a representative to the HAB. So all that remains to be seen, but I'm looking forward to continuing to be on the HAB, and I will certainly call on Michael's advice and counsel, both with respect to the BHA and the HAB, I'm sure frequently. So
He's agreed. He's agreed on both counts, not only for you but for me, that he's going to be around and available as the sage of Brookline in housing. Mike,
I will look forward to the informal celebration that I know we're planning. So,
Mike, remind me when we started together, was it in the pre-Patrick Dober era?
Oh yes. Oh
Yeah.
yes.
So, what was the prior?
It was with Brian Clunan,
Brian
and
Clunan,
it
right.
was
Oh, yeah.
it was prior to the switching of the chairperson prior to David Treach, uh, after Frank Maroney left his chair.
Oh, right, right. So the great thing that I think that you and others can be in both the BHA and the HAB really proud of, when we first began, the idea of partnering in development financing and financing of BHA projects was only a gleam in some people's eyes, because you didn't have a development division or a development director or anything capable of doing that. And we were hoping and ready, and since then, look at the partnership that's been that's blossomed and ripened over many years and several projects, right?
Yeah, well, our first development project was 2015 with Demer Street, and a lot's been accomplished since then. And by the way, I replaced Pam on the BHA, so here she is back on the HAB. I followed Pam up to the BHA, and Pam has followed me to the HAB.
right. There's a little bit of history I didn't know.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Eventually, but not so soon, we're hoping that she's going to just take her time with the latest step that you've taken. So
It's,
we'll
it's
hopefully.
funny because I remember all of those names.
That's right.
Frank and Brian, all of them.
That's right. Yeah, there's a few more people than just us HAB members that go back that far. Iwana, you remember some of these names from your time in the finance department, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Matt Baronis, all of them.
Yes, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Well,
And may I quickly?
yes, please.
Um, I just want to take this opportunity really quickly to say, to let you guys know, I will be retiring from my position in June 30th of this year. And it was a pleasure working with you all, and thanks for all the support that you have all given me. It's appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Oh, that's a shock and unpleasant one. I mean, pleasant for you certainly, but unpleasant for us. We will certainly be missed and hard to replace,
bittersweet.
I'm sure.
Yes, it's a bittersweet thing, but because I do love my job and I love the folks I work with. So,
But she
it's,
loves retirement more.
well, I love sleeping later. Everything the world can continue later in the morning, not so early.
It's too soon, Iwana, and I wasn't planning to bring that up just now because June 30th is 2 months away. So we've got you for two more HAB meetings, but I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to take note of your service as well. And with that, we're less than 1 minute away from the first announced public hearing. So, and we have our presenter for that. The first, real quick. So those of you that went to the planning board joint hearing know that there were 2 warrant articles relating to Chestnut Hill West. One was zoning. That was all about not just upzoning, but that was all of what we've been looking at and supporting on the affordable housing component. What a great opportunity for money and units, and that's what the planning board took action on then. The second article was kind of an appendage in terms of non-zoning aspects that also will need approval by town meeting. And so we have approved the one, we'll be reporting on the one, but just to make sure we've got the subject rounded out, the third public hearing we're having tonight, in addition to the 2 that you were all made aware of before, the IZ and the ADU, which is right in our lane, we have Michael Rubenstein, who's chair of the Development Committee for Chestnut Hill West, and Meredith Mooney returning. Welcome to both of you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Roger, and congratulations to you, Michael, for your on your retirement. Best
Thank
wishes from all of us. So my name is Michael Rubenstein. I'm a member of the Select Board, and my official title is I'm the Select Board Liaison to the Chestnut Hill Commercial Area Study Community Advisory Group. Meredith Mooney, who is with me tonight, has been leading this excellently for more than 2 years. And we are finally bringing both zoning and other agreements to town meeting for approval. Tonight, we're going to be talking about warrant article 2 of the special town meeting within the annual town meeting, which covers 2 agreements, which are authorizations to the select board to enter into 2 agreements with City Realty, which is the largest developer within the Chestnut, the developer who has the largest site within the Chestnut Hill commercial area. So let me bring up my slide deck. Okay, so the 2 agreements that we're looking at are a memorandum of agreement that contains a number of provisions, including provisions relating to their implementation of the inclusionary zoning bylaw, which is really the focus of tonight's meeting and presentation, as well as a tax certainty agreement. And I'll get into the details of that shortly. As a baseline for what we're looking at, here's a map of the Chestnut Hill Commercial Overlay District, and you can see the large yellow area on the left side is where City Realty is. It touches the Newton border on the west, and Route 9 on the north, Tully Street on the east, and Heath Street on the south. Okay. One of the elements of the memorandum of agreement is a description of the project that City Realty has proposed, and it includes 3 buildings. From right to left, Building A is a hotel with parking, retail on the first floor, and importantly for this group, 7 stories of amenitized condo buildings. So these are condo buildings that have access to the amenities of the hotel. Then Building B is a medical office building with 2 floors of retail, 2 floors of parking, and 8 floors of medical office space. And Building C is also a residential building. The first level is parking, and then 6 floors of rental apartments. Building A also has underground parking, as does Building C, but not at the moment Building B. In February of 2025, I think it was, that the city contracted with RKG Associates to develop a fiscal model that we could use to estimate the annual fiscal impact of any of these projects. So they looked at our budgets, they looked at market rates for various uses, and then we plugged in the parameters for the specific project that's being proposed by City Realty, and ultimately ended up with a net new tax growth after revenue, after the cost of services, and removing the property taxes that we already get, the roughly 1.1 million, to come up with a range, an estimated range of somewhere between 4.2 and 6.3 million dollars per year of net new tax growth for this project. Now, I'd really like to focus on the memorandum of agreement. The memorandum of agreement has a number of provisions that include town benefits, protections for the town, as well as neighborhood benefits and protections. I have slides for the other 2, the town protections and the neighborhood protections and benefits, but I wasn't planning on bringing them up. They don't really relate to the HAB's concerns, but I have them if you're interested in viewing them. The 2 issues within the MOA that really concern the HAB have to do with its implementation of the inclusionary zoning. The first is the $10.93 million payment to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in lieu of on-site affordable units in Building A, which has the 7 stories of condos. This is in accordance with a provision in section 4.08 of the zoning bylaw, which describes our inclusionary zoning. And I'll get into the details of that in a moment. Secondly, there are 21 affordable units on site, affordable to 50% AMI, again, per our inclusionary zoning bylaw. These are 15% of the 140 units in Building C. And then the other things that are listed here are other town benefits that are built within the MOA. Infrastructure payments, contributions to nonprofits, conference room access, a business improvement district, and others. So the details for the memorandum of agreement trust fund payment formula, the $10.93 million is fixed. So it's a fixed amount that we can expect based on the condos. It's fixed for 5 years. If the payments are not made within 5 years, then the HAB has an opportunity to go back and recalculate the payment amount in negotiation with City Realty. The payments are due into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as the condos are sold in Building A. So every condo has a certain percentage of the ownership of the condominium association, and based on that undivided percentage interest for each condo, you get a payment for that percentage of the $10.93 million. So that once 100% of the condos are sold, then the $10.93 million will be fully paid. There's also a provision in the MOA that says if after receiving the certificate of occupancies for any unit, those units are still owned by City Realty and remaining unsold, that 3-year time frame will also trigger payment for the amount due for that condo. Finally, there is a provision within the MOA that if payments are not made in a timely fashion, that subsequent certificates of occupancy for subsequent condos can be held up in order to encourage those payments to be made. And finally, just briefly, this doesn't touch on the HAB in particular, but the second agreement is a 95-year tax certainty agreement, which gives the town 2 protections fundamentally. One is a protection on the property tax in case a building is sold to a tax-exempt organization. That's primarily an issue for building B, which has medical office space and could be sold, for example, to a nonprofit hospital. And secondly, there is a protection for the hotel excise taxes that we expect in Building A, so that if the hotel is converted to a different use, there's a formula for calculating what the excise taxes would be, and those payments would be due to the town on an annual basis, just like the excise taxes are. Okay. That was the presentation that I had, and I'm happy to take any questions. Just so you know, I can answer questions. Meredith may have some answers. Legal questions may have to be deferred to Jonathan Simpson, who is enjoying time with his family this week, which is vacation week. But we will certainly do our best to answer those questions and take notes on any questions that we can answer.
Thank you, Michael. And I see that in our audience, we also have Cliff Kensington, the lead principal for City Realty. Have members first. Any questions or comments, what you just heard? I have one. A few of the bells and whistles that you've added to the condo payment agreement, I don't think they were all specifically in what the HAB recommended when we adopted them, but they're very good to the point where I'm thinking if they aren't, every one of those aren't in future standard agreements that the HAB has for trust fund commitments on other projects, we probably ought to want to have them in there as a standardized set of requirements. I like them. Any other comments? So at this point, it's a public hearing. I haven't looked at who's attending, but if there are any questions or comments from the members of the general public who happen to be attending, please raise your hand and we'll recognize you. I don't see any. Emily, do you see anybody that wants to speak?
No.
Okay, great. Well, we just gained a lot of time on our meeting clock. So then I will announce that the public hearing is now closed, and we will have opportunity for discussion, and to kind of officially trigger that discussion, I will move for approval of the tax certainty agreement, have recommend favorable action on the warrant article, including the memorandum of agreement and the terms and the tax certainty agreement to complement and supplement what we've already voted to approve on the underlying zoning. And if there's a second, then we'll have any discussion.
I'll second.
Pam seconds. Any members that want to discuss the motion on the floor? Hearing none?
I just,
Yes,
so
Jonathan.
can I get a clarification? So
Sure.
is the motion on the floor that we are recommending favorable action on STM warrant articles 1 and 2, or is it narrower than that?
It's intended to be exactly what you just said. I just attempted to describe it in terms of what what it's headed and contains. But yes, let's make the motion as you're saying. This is one reason we have a bylaw requiring the HAB to have legal expertise on our board. The motion will be to for the HAB to recommend favorable action on special town meeting articles 1 and 2. And Pam, do you want to resecond that?
Sure, second.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to call for a vote,
I
beginning
have
with.
just one question, Roger,
Sure.
if I'm able.
Yes.
I did see that there's a 3-year, something kicks in on 3 years where they have to pay the rest if it's not sold, but there's also a 5-year provision. So can you explain the difference between those two?
Sure, sure.
I can, but let's let the presenter do it. But go
Okay.
ahead. There's a definite difference.
So the 3-year provision is triggered at the point of the certificate of occupancy. And the 5-year provision is triggered at the point of the town meeting approvals, which for practical purposes is when the AG approves. But after the AG approves, there's a period where, the building has to be built, the condos have to be fitted out in order to get the certificates of occupancy. So the 5-year period is specifically for determining whether the $10.93 million is still appropriate. And the 3-year period afterwards is once that number is set, and the certificate of occupancy has been issued, then basically City Realty has 3 years to sell the unit, or if they don't manage to sell it within 3 years of the certificate of occupancy, then they have to make the payment regardless of the fact. Because City Realty may, for their own purposes, choose to hold on to one of these condos and not sell it, in which case we still want the money to go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting, and because I see Cliff is here, we had some exploratory discussions to do something that would be functionally similar to what is now in there as the 5-year relook, and I believe that's partly to recognize that market conditions could change one way or the other, up or down, in 5 years, which would affect the sellout. We had explored, and Cliff will recall, a market-driven, almost a formula where changing market conditions was going to allow almost automatic increases or decreases depending upon the market moving up or down, which would have increased or decreased the 10.9 million, either with a cap or with no cap. So there was a lot of options on the table to think through this. And I guess I'm assuming and that Cliff, you're okay with what was worked out with the 5 years with a similar goal, but a different way of doing it.
Yes, this was a as you may remember, I was very placed a lot of value on getting the certainty. This was kind of came as the conversation continued with the town and town council that they were looking for an opportunity to re-examine it at some point in the future. So we did agree to make that change that that there would, if kind of things stalled or there was, things dragged on, that there'd be an opportunity to renegotiate that calculation. So we did agree to that.
I actually have a question. It doesn't relate in any way to supporting what's on the table, but perhaps of some interest, because many of us have watched the Waldo Durgan site sit fallow for years, and still no date for groundbreaking. Is there any expectations or conditions of what if this site were to say fallow for 5 or 10 years? Is that just part of the deal?
Well, I'll make a couple of comments and then either Cliff or Jennifer may want to comment from City Realty. The first thing to say is that the town cannot legally compel the owner of a property to build. So that is the first thing. We can incentivize, and there actually is a incentive that was recently added to the MOA that says that if the certificate of occupancy, I believe it is, for building A occurs within a set period of time, either 3 or 5 or 6 years, then we are going to grant City Realty more flexibility in the timing of some of the subsequent buildings. In particular, the timing between building C and building B, assuming that a particular order of the buildings. So that's just one incentive that we have in place. There is another condition in the MOA that that has agreed upon penalty payments in the case that building C is built, building B breaks ground and is financed, but for some reason the construction of building B is delayed. And that's primarily to protect the town's ability to collect property tax revenue on the commercial properties, particularly in building B. So we have those provisions in the MOA, but that's sort of the incentives, the carrots and the sticks that we have in place. Cliff or Jennifer, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think that we've worked on a lot of provisions to both incentivize but also protect the town. I think it's been a long haul with this document, but I think that it gives enough flexibility to city to attract lenders, which and possible partners for the hotel and different buildings. And I think they've already got a lot of interest from various folks, and I think that's a really great sign. And we just want to get over this first phase through the zoning so that we can really start thinking about getting the financing in place and breaking ground. So we're really excited and we appreciate all the work that has gone into this on the town side.
Yeah, and I think the only other thing I would just add is that, you know, for all the kind of legal and textual incentives, there's no greater incentive than the real world economics that would come if we don't actually move forward with building anything. And I can promise everyone that those are far stronger than anything we could be putting in these agreements. So I will definitely say that, you know, a lot of the work has been trying to kind of give where we can and hold the line where we can't on the things that would lead to the friction and would lead to the scenarios where these delays would happen. And I think we're all very happy with where things have landed, and we feel really strongly that we've got a zoning and project concepts and flexibility to prevent any kind of, you know, prolonged delays from happening.
So as much as I'm sure the HAB wants to see an accelerated time frame for the sale of the condos and the contributions to the housing trust, I'm sorry I have to tell you that the housing trust fund cannot be used to buy down the interest rate on your financing. We have two hands up. I didn't see which one went up first, so I'm gonna call by seniority, which means Mike.
Jonathan was first, so let him go ahead.
Okay.
I have a few comments since it seems we're ahead of schedule. First is that I want to acknowledge that an enormous amount of time, energy, and effort and work has gone into this, you know, primarily by town staff and Meredith and the people in the planning department, by Michael and his companion, Michael Sandman, you know, on behalf of the select board, and also by City Realty, you know, in managing its way through this complex town process. And I want to appreciate all of them. I want to secondly say that I think while this is primarily about commercial and economic development and an opportunity for the town, I really think that this is an excellent affordable housing outcome for the town, which is, from the HAB's point of view, I think the important thing for this meeting. The on-site units will be at 50% of AMI, will be in that, really terrific location, will be a great contribution. And $10.93 million, I think is also, and I'm hoping that everything goes successfully so that we get that money, will, go a long way toward supporting many, many more units of affordable housing. So I think that's really good. The third thing I want to say is to acknowledge and thank the team, and I don't know where this came from Michael or Meredith or someone else, for incorporating the HAB's work on the Affordable Housing Overlay District, which you'll recall through the subcommittee that I worked on, did some work and concluded that we thought that there was a possibility or a feasibility for affordable projects that had 50% affordable units, and that we should find a way to encourage them. We have not taken that any further, through a formal affordable housing overlay district, but that concept was incorporated in the zoning, not for the City Realty parcel, but for the some of the other parcels in the Chestnut Hill commercial area, giving incentive zoning in effect to increase height from, I believe, 4 stories or maybe 5 up to 6 with 50% affordability. So I think that'll be a good test to see if, if that concept works, but I appreciate that idea being incorporated. And I think that's something that the HAB should also take note of. So
I think you should give credit to Meredith and others in staff for that work.
Okay,
Yes.
then I will. Thank you, Meredith.
Jonathan, it's a good reminder, actually, harking back, when the HAB produces what I think will be a fairly brief report of favorable action on both of these articles, including the zoning, we want to make, I would say, let's make sure that there's a remark in there to that effect. That would be an easy thing to overlook when we're so focused so much on the City Realty and the building, the big project to be built, and that's buried in the zoning, but it's really an important point. Mike?
I'm okay.
Oh, okay. Meredith?
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. And I did just want to also acknowledge Emily and, through internal conversations in the planning department and talking about the zoning and some of the objectives, Emily sort of connected the dots and steered us towards the AHOD subcommittee report and those excellent recommendations. We're really excited to find an opportunity to pilot those in the zoning. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
It's great when staff collaborates.
Yes. Well, we are not a big bureaucracy, and our departments work like that. I've observed that as well, and we're looking forward to not only what just you cited here, but going forward with our Emily and our new CPA staff person, which is going to be another important partnering. If there's no more comments, I will call for the vote as reworded. If everybody's comfortable with what the wording is, Bill?
I vote yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes, but let me just say that since the select board has already voted favorable action, I can vote at this meeting favorable action also. Just want to explain why I'm voting now when many times I abstain.
That's terrific, but it's
For
also
the record.
that we the HAB didn't put this on our schedule soon enough for some boards, including advisory, that have been looking to see what the HAB's going to do on the affordable housing part, but everything's moving well. Steve?
Yes, since the
Jonathan?
planning board has already voted favorable action, I can vote that here as well.
Good. Jonathan?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
We're getting down to your last couple of votes, Mike. Sean?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, and it's unanimous, and I think it's 10 unanimous.
9, we're missing Carol.
Nine, I'm sorry, Carol, right, 9. It's on the record book, and this part of the agenda is completed, and we'll move to the next public hearing.
Thank you,
both
everyone.
for coming, Michael, Meredith, development team.
Thank you all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good luck.
night.
See you at the groundbreaking. The next item, and public hearing is, the article on, glasses here, which one is next? The article on, the,
15.
This is 15. This is the inclusionary zoning. Trying to read my own handwriting here. Which the HAB is quite familiar with. And for this article and leading for a public hearing, we have a presentation of one of the three lead petitioners, Alec Leibowitz. Welcome, Alec. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Roger. And I can be super, super brief since, I think we've already kind of prefaced this discussion with our meeting last month. And I'll just remind folks that the simple change being proposed by Article 15 is just changing or reverting back, I should say, the unit threshold for a project eligible for the inclusionary zoning policy from where it currently sits at 10 back to 19. Below which a developer is given the option to exercise a cash contribution to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in lieu of on-site units. This is simply going back to where the policy had been prior to 2023. And happy to take any questions or jump in if there's a desire for more discussion. But I'll just note that since we met and discussed this article last month, both the planning board and as of last night, the advisory committee have both voted favorable action on warrant Article 15. So I would ask that you consider joining them in supporting favorable action on the article. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. And you did a nice job last night at the full advisory and at the advisory subcommittee before that. It was remarked that the land use subcommittee rarely has a unanimous vote, but you managed to extract one from them. So that was another feather.
And many thanks to you as well, Roger, for being an active participant in those hearings and providing some of the factual basis. Much appreciated.
And we both share the smile that now, in the 200+ year history of Brookline Town Meeting, we will now have 2 warrant articles on the books where the word count of the article is 0. I hope everybody understands that.
No.
Before the public hearing part of this, we don't see a lot of public. Any questions or comments from HAB members?
Yeah, I would just say that at our planning board hearing on this warrant article, Alec gave a very good, concise, and informative explanation for why he and his colleagues were doing this. And probably, had they not done it, I'm not sure the HAB would have thought of doing this at this moment in time. But I think it's a good idea, and certainly the planning board unanimously agreed as well.
I had an interesting recent comment or question, which was kind of valid, but also amusing, was whose town meeting to believe at this point when only a few years ago we went and asked them on behalf of the HAB in all of our wisdom to reduce the 19 to 10. And now only a few years later, we're coming back to town meeting, supporting a total reversal of what we had offered them in all of our wisdom and with all of our reasoning, and now an explanation supporting the exact opposite. But I'm not going to worry about that and hope nobody else does either. But I hope nobody at town meeting asks the question. Bernard.
Hey, I just want to correct something. I made a huge mistake. The select board has not voted on warrant articles 1 and 2 of the special town meeting. I was confused about something else. I apologize, but I don't think it makes a real difference in terms of my ability to vote. Given we've gone through the process and we just have a vote coming up probably next meeting.
So you don't want to officially change your vote to abstaining here for the
I don't think that's necessary, but I do apologize for there's just so much going on, and we had the hearing last week, and I screwed that up in terms of thinking we'd completed the process.
Well, you did vote, many weeks ago to put those warrant articles on the town meeting and on the warrant. So you had a positive vote on that.
Yeah. So that For the
There you
record,
go.
that's my excuse.
There you go. Steve?
Just wanted to go back in terms of responding to your question of town meetings, is why are we going back to this? And I think Alec and his colleagues actually provided a couple of very good reasons, but one clear one is that when this was changed, it was and I think some of this is reflected in the planning board's comments. There was some anticipation that with the advent of the Community Preservation Act, there might be a regular influx of cash, as there is in other communities that have CPA committees and affordable housing trusts, from the CPA to the local housing trust. And that hasn't materialized, and we may not see any kind of substantial ongoing such contribution from the CPA committee. That's one thing. And the second thing is, there was a theory at the time, I think, that there was a desire to have more truly mixed income projects. And any project that was built, beyond a certain very modest size, there ought to be some affordable units on site. And we aren't seeing many projects like that. And it's clearly a disincentive for developers to have to provide an on-site unit in a fairly small project, as opposed to making a cash contribution. And then third, with that cash, we were able to leverage a lot more units for the buck than we get in smaller projects with only a couple of affordable units. So we're coming back to the value of the cash in the Affordable Housing Trust, and hopefully we'll see more projects that we've helped fund that are 100% affordable and of larger scale. So those are a couple of reasons why we're going back to this. You might say, in retrospect, it was kind of an experiment that didn't really have the results that we anticipated.
Well, we did. I remember making the presentation at the town meeting, and we did mention, but it was not a lead reason. It was a kind of a throw-in reason that we were expecting future revenue from the CPA to support the trust. And as you know, we are still we're still working for that, but I think that we have good reason to expect a flow of funds from the CPA. We already got one contribution this year of 400,000, but I think that I'm optimistic that we're going down a direction there, that the passage of this article should not be held up as a reason for pausing appropriate funding from CPA. First of all, we can't predict that this will produce significant additional funding, and by the historical record of projects in the 10 to 19 range, it's been uneven and not very significant. So, but that's not a reason not to do it. But anyway, Jonathan?
I have two comments. One is that in one of the hearings, again, answering the question, why did we recommend this change, and why are we changing it back now, or recommending a change back now? In one of the hearings I was at, someone asked the question of, since the change was made, have there been any projects, in between the 10 and 19 units that have included affordable units on site? And the answer to that was no, there have been none. So, and frankly, in the period before that, there were several projects, one of which is across the street from where I live now, which were built. It's a 13-unit development that did make a contribution to the affordable housing, or will make a contribution upon the sale of the units to the Affordable Housing Trust. So I think that this has been potentially, we can't know about individual situations, a disincentive to development of those, mid-range or missing middle, or whatever you want to call them, right. Potential projects. So we'll never know. But I think that that's one good reason, for it. So that's my first point. My second one is that there is an obvious thing missing from this, which is that it doesn't apply to the Harvard Street corridor. And people here will know or remember, most everyone, that in the Harvard corridor has a special rule in which there are no opportunities for making payments in lieu, either for up to 10 units or up to 19 units. And we also, maybe coincidentally, maybe not, have not seen any development in the Harvard Street corridor since we passed that zoning change, 2 years ago at this point. So I think with respect to the inclusionary zoning, putting aside the other potential issues with that, with that zoning that might need to be revisited, I think it may be incumbent on the HAB to look at least at the inclusionary zoning piece of that in the future. And
Yes,
I would suggest in the near future and try and correct what I think was a mistake in that zoning, and which the strong proponent of that, Paul Warren, has stated publicly was a mistake. So.
Yes, John, I'm glad you're mentioning that. HAB members will remember, we objected strongly to carving that out for removing that, the cash option, whatever the reasons were. And I was quite vocal about that. And you may remember that we had, I met with the town administrator, and then the town administrator very gracefully came and met with the whole HAB. We talked about process and not so much about that. That was immediately following the change. But it is something that my understanding, especially with Paul Warren's follow-up statement of his own views, that we should proceed to literally fix it, in my opinion. So
maybe Alec will come back and fix it for us next time.
yeah, that's a thought. That's a thought. This is a public hearing. We do have at least a couple of members of the public officially with us. So let me just call for any public comment or question from those who are here, if there is any. Hearing none. Is that a long enough, it's like silent prayer? Is that a long enough period of silence? Steve?
Can I just say one thing, since you brought up the Harvard Street zoning and the issue with the requiring the on-site affordable housing? I think another overly restrictive component of that zoning, which a number of us, including the planning board, felt was a mistake, was restricting height to 4 stories. And if we're going to fix the Harvard Street zoning, I would suggest that we consider allowing at least a 5th story. I think those two things together have been a major disincentive to anyone contemplating development along Harvard Street.
Of course, something that, and this could end up delaying a straight inclusionary zoning fix that we just were talking about.
True.
On the other hand, something we talked about earlier this evening, in terms of 4 versus 5 or 6 stories, that will inevitably, and maybe it's a good thing, bring back the AHOD study and the idea of a density bonus if that were to be considered for affordable housing.
Yeah, I think actually the removing the on-site affordable housing requirement will be a relatively easy fix in terms of getting support.
Right.
I'm not so sure that allowing additional height, although as you point out, as it was done, proposed in Chestnut Hill, adopting the AHOD idea of allowing that height with a substantial amount of on-site affordable housing, maybe that would be an intermediate step to simply increasing the height limit to 5 stories.
So Alec is still here. I'm sure he's listening to all of this with great interest. So let's perhaps agree to put this question and these couple of possible alternative choices about the quick and easy IZ fix, or including other things like we just talked about at the same time in terms of added height or density bonus. Let's bring that back for a HAB discussion at one of our upcoming near-term meetings. Mike?
Well, since I'm not going to be around at the next discussion, I just want to echo what Steve is saying and look towards projects like 420 Harvard Street, which had a 5th floor but stepped back in a way which made it still appear as a 4-story building. So if the HAB starts considering, or the planning board starts considering that, adding some additional maybe design guidelines where 5 stories would be allowed with step backs might make it more palatable.
That makes sense, and it raises another option or question. If the HAB wants to initiate and proceed with this in any way other than just fixing the cash option part, it might be done jointly with the planning board. So we can take all of that into account and have a good discussion. For the moment, I'm going to close the public hearing and offer a motion for favorable action from the recommendation for favorable action from the HAB on warrant article 15. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? If not, we'll take a vote. Same order that on the screen. That's the easiest way for me to do it. Bill,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bernard,
Is on mute.
Bernard. I'll pass for
I'm
the
sorry.
moment.
Hey, I'm gonna abstain because I do not believe that we've taken this up. Although I'm checking right now.
Select board has not voted on this, just confirm.
Okay,
That's even better because we love when the select board looks at articles having to do with affordable housing that they ask, what did the HAB recommend?
all right.
We're early enough for this. Sean,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, and we have a unanimous vote of, I believe, 9-0.
Thank you all
Big
very
one.
much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
9-0.
8 yeses, 1
Yes,
abstention.
yes, 8-0-1.
8-0-1.
Thanks for the correction. Yep. And the third public hearing, oh my, we're too early. That's good and bad, I suppose, but we have a couple of other things that we can do in the 17 minutes interim. Beginning with Ioana, you ready to do resources? You're
Sorry,
muted.
it's-
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
no, it takes me a minute to find the mouse to, yes, I can do that. Just one moment, let me get it up.
Roger, don't we have isn't there kind of a standing acknowledgement that we can take, I think the planning board has this, items on an agenda up to 30 minutes or so before or after, or before they're scheduled, something like that.
I think that may be true, but I'm not sure if it's true for formal announced public hearings.
I
If
see.
somebody does know, I'm fine with it, but there's no harm done here either way because we're going to advance other.
Okay, yeah, we have other business.
We were trying to set times because we thought everyone would go over, but you guys are
Yeah,
quick and decisive.
we're talking fast. Ioana,
Yes, what we have here is for the past month, we took in $145,983 in IZ funds. And we now have a total encumbrance and commitments that we have is $5,026,238. And the actual obligated available that the trust can actually use is $6,323,443. The total balance that we have in our account is $11,349,681. And we have interest, some interests have not been recorded as yet because they were not in munis, and I was not able to get those numbers. And the interest from January through March, I haven't seen that. And of course, I don't know the interest on and it's not from lack of trying. I've asked and still have not gotten that actual interest amount, so I can report that to you guys. I will keep asking and I'll keep working at it, and hopefully I can get that to you, in our next meeting, because it's important for you guys to know what's happening.
well, you're not alone on this, Ioana. You got Bernard's attention, my attention, and I think
Pam's attention.
and the HAB's attention for sure.
Yes.
So
I've sent several emails and I've met in person. Yes, I'll send that to you, but I just haven't gotten it, so.
How do we
Okay,
effectively address?
Ioana, you can send me those emails?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Pam?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not involved in town. This is the only thing I do relative to the town. And I must admit, I don't know the players. I don't really know how the town operates, which is why I find this all so frustrating. So how does one handle this effectively? I mean, what's it's not your fault. you keep
Oh, I
sending
know.
emails and you don't get responses. So I
Right.
really don't understand. So part of my frustration is, having run a big organization, you hold people accountable. And I don't understand how we do that in the town.
Okay,
So that's,
the way we do it is through the town administrator. The town administrator is responsible for all town employees and for the work that they do. So we've talked to the town administrator, and I just need to pester him on this, and with the information that Yvonne is sending me, we can pester him some more.
Mhm.
Now, why doesn't that work? Well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and we're all busy doing a million other things. But since I have this new information that still we haven't received our interest, this is going to be a big pester.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, I can make this a little more public, and use other levers of pressure. And I think that maybe now is the time, because this is a lot of money. We made a big issue out of the fact that we were getting 1% interest or whatever it was, and I think that we're definitely within our rights to demand that this get fixed
yeah.
quickly, and if not, why? And like I said, I'm a little concerned about the tax implications. I mean, I don't really fully understand, the investments that they're making, but if they're related to our bond issuances, there may be some serious tax consequences that could prevent us from receiving the money, or could even create worse problems for the town.
Right.
So,
Great.
So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
we do understand, I think, and Ivana, you can confirm this, although, verifying is seeing something in writing, that there's actually been more than one problem here. The first one was a delay in getting the funds reinvested reasonably promptly after we adopted a policy which everybody was signed on to, including our finance department.
In October.
Bumping the rate, in October, getting the rate up from 1% to closer to 4%. We still believe that did happen, and that since then it's been more a matter of reporting, and B, having the trust funds account segregated from the town's general accounts. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I would
Now,
just
is
like
that-
something, I would like it resolved, and I'd like
Yeah.
something in writing that really analyzes how did this happen, and what, as Bernard has said, what's the impact of this? But it's beyond my pay grade, as they say. I have no standing in the town with
we
people.
are, as a board, we're advisory, and we're doing our best. We jumped on this as soon as it became apparent that we were fiduciaries for not
Right.
just the deployment, but the investment policy itself. So anyway, we
and by the way, it's now my responsibility to get this fixed, because I have the most leverage, and I'm one of the ones who was yelling, screaming about this in the beginning. So
Great.
I was
Thank
hoping
you.
not to get you involved, Bernard, but we tried. I've sent
well, what are you
emails.
gonna do? Fire me?
No, I just,
So, one thing that's kind of relevant, it's worth the have knowing that Steve and I attended we formed a subcommittee of two, Steve and myself. Steve serves on the Community Preservation Act committee as HAB's temporary delegate. And we agreed that we were going to not file a town meeting resolution, and really try to have constructive dialogue and exploration to try to adopt a jointly acceptable policy for the CPA funding, both helping to fund our projects, and also some way of annually funding non-project specific buildup of our reserves in the trust. And we had a meeting of a little over an hour today with both of Nancy and Heller and David Descoyer, but also very importantly with the new CPA staff person, Laura Smead, who, in addition to the draft MOU that we voted many months ago and referred to the CPA committee, Laura has done, based on extensive experience, she formed the trust as the planner in Canton, and also comes with CPA related experience. She brought to the meeting today and provided several highly researched documents in terms of the basis for doing what we're proposing, what other towns are doing, and a framework for this. And in addition to what we brought in the form of a draft MOU, we feel, and I think Steve, you asked you to comment as well. For the opening meeting, and considering how much angst this is given for over a year, and the the Walnut High project's kind of frustrations. Steve, what was your quick observation?
Well, I think Laura Smead, as Roger mentioned, has a lot of experience in this, and she put together a couple of very useful documents. One is she called it a framework for how a collaboration in terms of allocation of funds and administration of funds would work. And then she put together a memo, as Roger referred to, of how this has come about and what's done in other communities. That in effect, if any of you looked at the draft MOU that we, or largely Roger, has prepared, that started out with a lot of whereases, like why we're doing this, they were really kind of captured in another form in Laura's memo of what other towns are doing and why this is done. And I would say there's still a little bit of resistance on the part of key, let's say the chair and vice chair of the CPA, but especially the chair, who is still sticking to the notion that the town's desire, the town broadly, is that CPA funds be equitably distributed among the three major categories: community housing, historic preservation, and open space and recreation. And that so far, a predominant amount of money has gone to housing, and she would love to see that balanced out. And that's not what happens in most other communities, where many communities like ours, a significant majority of the funds go to housing, which sucks up a lot of money these days to do any housing creation and preservation. So we're still, I don't know that we have 100% consensus. Well, consensus doesn't require 100%, but I don't know that we're at a meeting of the minds. But I think we've kind of put it in Laura's hands to see if she can meld our concerns with her structuring of an agreement and what's being done in other communities, and see if we can come up with something. I don't think we're talking about a guaranteed annual allocation of CPA funds, but I think we are looking for an acknowledgement that there can and should be, where the funds are available, regular contributions to the Housing Trust Fund, because we know that aside from projects that come up with specific needs on any given year, that we know there is a pipeline of projects down the road, the second phase of Walnut High, potential redevelopment of the Babcock Street town-owned parking lot or the Kent Street lot. Further down the road, other large BHA projects like the Veterans High Street development with a 5-acre site that will be requiring major investments, and a good reason to start building housing trust funds toward those goals. Even if the Chestnut Hill zoning succeeds, we may be receiving over the next few years as much as $10.93 million from that source. And we may be getting more cash if the other warrant article that we just talked about, where developers can make contributions, have the option of making contributions for projects up to 19 units. So we may have other sources of funds, but I think, as we see in other communities, they support, the CPAs support the housing trust funds, and we're looking for some form of agreement that will happen here.
We did agree at a broad level that there will be two documents that will serve complementary purposes that will be developed. One, anything we actually get from the CPA will have a framework a document where we have to apply every year, whether it's a project or whether it's non-project specific. That's not a problem. So that's one document. The second document, which we were calling a memorandum of understanding, MOU, we're not going to call it that because it's going to be confused with the way CPA does MOUs on specific grants. We'll call it something like a framework or a statement of intent or something, and that will be a general non-binding document covering a policy intended to apply over multiple years. Again, non-binding, that will, we hope, end up having some kind of a formula in it, a formula-based method of determining how much the CPA would allocate to the trust based on circumstances and how much is already in the trust. Jonathan.
I'm going to repeat what I've said at other meetings, including meetings of the CPA committee and maybe this meeting, which is that every time I hear that statement that you repeated of the idea that funds should be allocated a third between housing, preservation, and open space, I have a violent negative reaction. And the reason I do is that the town and the CPA committee went through a very careful process of setting up a CPA strategic plan. I forget exactly what it's called. It took over a year, and it set forth exactly what the town's priorities were for considering applications to the CPA and how funds should be allocated and prioritized. And nowhere in that detailed document that was subject to public hearings, public comment, and engagement does it say a third. It says no such thing anywhere. So I think that that's just
Jonathan, your future colleague on the BHA board, Sue Cohen, who is the current BHA representative to the CPA, said exactly that.
okay. So I know I'm preaching
Got
to the
into a
choir
fight
here,
with
but I
Nancy.
think anytime it gets said, it has to be rebutted. So I apologize. Thank you.
We opened the subject and we challenged that today, and it's on the table, and it's teed up for future discussion along the very lines that you're talking about, John.
Everyone should go back and read the original plan. It was actually very good and very thoughtful, and it did, have really important priorities that related to housing.
And as Steve mentioned, we put this somewhat back on Laura to add flesh to the bone on how other cities and towns decide this, if they do, and what arms of the government and by what process do they arrive at the kind of a policy that we're hoping to see, which is hopefully more than a third going to housing. Alex.
Not to get too deep in the weeds of all the discussions that you guys have had with the CPA, but when there's a conversation about regular contributions to the housing trust, I would imagine that you'd get pushback saying, oh, well, we can't do this regular amount because we have to have all this other stuff, other places. I was just curious if you ever say it doesn't have to be a standing amount. What if it's a percentage of your overall for your budget or however you're
allocated? The MOU has some very specific and I think thoughtful balancing of how that amount would be determined.
Okay,
and,
cool.
And it's drawn from the concept that we've had many years from the town's free cash allocation, where if we have less than a certain amount in the trust that's unencumbered for doing projects, it triggers eligibility for receipt of the funds. And in the case of what we're proposing, what we have in this MOU that we voted and offered them, a year ago, it's got that kind of a concept, and then the percentage is it's the lesser of making up the difference in a given year, but not more than 1/3 of their total annual certified budget from the prior fiscal year. So there's a lot of balancing going on, but it's pretty well defined, and so we're prepared to discuss it and advocate for it. And you're right on in the point you're raising. Absolutely.
Further, could you also? I think that makes a lot of sense what you said. I'm just considering that they might also add on to it, saying, well, actually, a third of it covers it. But to any extent, they could say, well, we have such less available now. Just always, it's a third always covers it. Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be more negotiation and discussion, and as you all know, if the HAB feels strongly that we can't get something that we think is appropriate, we can revert to, you know, offering a resolution for town meeting. So, but we hope that's not going to be the case. So it's now 6:47, and we can have our third public hearing, which is homegrown. It's Article 14, right, Jonathan? 14?
Correct.
The ADU article, which you'll remember, we had a subcommittee formed of the HAB, which included Jonathan and Alex, who have done great work, and two non-HAB members, Tom Renkus from the Planning Board and Kelly Hardebeck from the Advisory Committee, which got ample discussion at the Advisory Committee last night. But at this point, Jonathan, I guess for this, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to share a short PowerPoint.
We also had strong staff contributions from Emily and Maria and Citizen Benka.
Yes, for sure. And Dick is in the audience.
Yes, and Jonathan Simpson from the legal staff also helped a lot on this. So this is, oops, there's like a typo here. That's odd. So the accessory dwelling unit is warrant Article 14. As Roger said, we had a subcommittee of the HAB with a member of the Planning Board and a member of the AC Land Use Subcommittee. I'm going to show you, I'm going to go through this quickly because we have had a presentation about it and talked about it several times before over the course of the activity, but just as a quick reminder, in August, the governor signed the Affordable Homes Act, which had specific provisions, statewide provisions about ADUs. In the fall of that year, we reviewed our ADU bylaw, thinking that we would be complying with the state law. In February, the state adopted regulations that provided much more detail interpreting the state law than was in the statute itself. In June, the Attorney General sent us a quite lengthy and detailed letter with many ways in which our bylaw did not comply with the state law as interpreted by the regulations, and saying that those provisions were unenforceable. We reacted to that by the HAB setting up the subcommittee in order to review the bylaw and see what we could do to bring it into compliance, and still comply as much as we could with our prior bylaw and the objectives that the town had already approved. We met 6 times or 7 times between August and February. We had a very productive process that included the subcommittee, the staff, and Dick Benka was very helpful with that, and participated significantly. And we now have a warrant article for the town meeting. The warrant Article 14, with some friendly amendments that were proposed by several different people, but including the AC Land Use Subcommittee, has now been, to my knowledge, approved favorably for favorable action by the Planning Board. It was recommended by the ACU Subcommittee and I believe approved, I was told by Kelly this morning, by the full Advisory Committee at its meeting last night. And so it's now up to us to, if you so choose, to vote favorably on it. So that's where we're at. So
Advisory was 19-1 last night.
19-1. Okay. Very good. So the state law in our bylaw adopts the terminology of a protected use ADU, which is a attached or detached ADU that is located in a single family residential zoning district. Now, the key here is that in our prior bylaw, we interpreted that to mean one of our S zones that specifically provide for single family homes. But the state clarified that their statute actually meant that a single family residential district is any district in which a single family home is allowed. And that includes 2, 3, and multifamily districts. So it expanded significantly the areas where ADUs are allowed. And we have conformed our bylaw to meet that requirement. The key guidance in the statute is that they must be by right, not have more restrictive regulations than principal dwelling units or other accessory buildings, and not have more restrictive dimensional standards than are applicable to principal dwellings or accessory structures. And they may not conflict with rights granted under the Dover Amendment, which protects ADUs as a protected use, gives it that special status. What is the Dover Amendment? It limits how municipalities can regulate certain protected uses, which include ADUs now. So, as I said, one ADU must be allowed by right. We cannot prohibit or unreasonably restrict it. So there was a lot of concern that some of the things in our prior bylaw were deemed unreasonable restrictions, and they can't be more restrictive than similar restrictions for similar structures. So here's a little chart that shows the things that were disallowed in key things. I already talked about the single family zoning districts. We had a provision that a principal dwelling or garage be in existence for 5 years before applying for an ADU. That was disallowed. That treats ADUs more restrictively than other uses. We also had a provision, and this is pretty key, that limited the maximum height of an ADU to 22 feet or 1.5 stories. That was disallowed. We came up with a little bit of a workaround on that I'll mention later. But the requirement is that if a principal dwelling can be up to 35 feet, say, then the ADU also could be up to 35 feet in the same district or on the same lot. And that's regardless of whether it's an attached or detached ADU. Now, it's for a 900 square foot ADU, it's not very practical to have a 3-story ADU. So that's not a likely result or something that practically is of concern. But the height restriction is something we spent a lot of time on in the subcommittee. So the purpose of the warrant article was to bring Brookline into compliance. So the highlights. We made protected use ADUs by right with a maximum size of 900 square feet. Now, I will mention that our prior bylaw allowed ADUs at 950 square feet. And we had a discussion about whether to try to have a protected use ADU be allowed to be up to 900 square feet, consistent with our prior policy. We concluded that for some technical reasons that it was simpler and cleaner to simply go with the state definition of 900 square feet. And so that's where we landed. We also removed parking requirements for protected use ADUs. The state law disallows, says you can't require parking within a half mile of a transit location, and the transit location is interpreted broadly. It would have covered all of Brookline except for some very small parts of South Brookline that would not have been covered by that half-mile radius. And I believe, and the committee decided it wanted to simply extend the no additional parking required for a protected use ADU throughout the town. We changed the height and setback requirements so that they're now consistent with the principal structure or the accessory structure, whichever is the most permissive. Now, on the height, we did insert a provision, and we hope this will pass muster with the Attorney General, that if the height is over 22 feet, which is roughly 1.5 stories, that the owner must submit evidence to the building commissioner demonstrating that the additional height is necessary for the ADU. The building commissioner has no discretion to review or accept or reject that. If we gave the building commissioner that discretion, it would have been disallowed as an unreasonable regulation. That was a comment that we did get from the Attorney General. But we think that requiring someone to at least demonstrate and state their reasons for having more height would at least put a little bit of boundary around it. So, and we also inserted some language to the extent possible. It's not possible to be perfect about this, to try and ensure that ADUs are used as ADUs and not as a backdoor way to just increase the usable square footage of the principal dwelling unit. So I think I will. We talked about updated setbacks and heights. The minimum side yard setback is the most permissive requirement that is applicable to either an accessory structure or a principal dwelling. And the same is true of the rear yard setback requirement. This will allow ADUs in some cases as close as 6 feet to a property line. We did insert some language requiring some buffering where it is close to a property line to protect adjacent homeowners. And we put in a compliance provision requiring certification to the building commissioner that the ADU will be used as an ADU and will contain permanent cooking, sleeping, and sanitary facilities. And that certification has to be repeated if a property changes hands. It's been asked, is it possible someone could avoid that and could, kind of sneak around the rules and, get away with it? Sure, things are possible, but we have done our best. We were assured by the building commissioner that they're aware of what's going on in most cases, that they, when anyone needs a building permit for any changes or things, that the building commissioner inspects and has the ability to enforce the requirement. So that's a very quick overview. I don't want to, if you want, I could put up the warrant article itself with the changes, which I think were in your materials that everybody has. I don't know if you want me to go through those or not. I'm guessing not, but I'll stop and take questions or comments.
John,
Steve, your hand is
question.
up. Yes.
I think this looks great. One thing that came up when I was looking at the edited version, with all the things that were taken out of our previous version of the bylaw, at one point we had allowed a special permit for ADUs that were larger than 900 square feet. Actually, in the version I'm looking at, it was between 900 and 950. But I think there was a thought at one time that, if an ADU was being built for someone with special needs or someone who needed an aid, there might be a reason to have a larger than 900 square foot ADU. That's been deleted. The idea of a larger ADU by special permit. That wouldn't in itself conflict with state law. Why was that deleted? As far as I don't think that would conflict with the state law.
That's correct. It wouldn't conflict with state law. And that was deleted because of concerns that we were required to have one protected use ADU. And there was a concern that if you allowed an ADU by special permit, that if someone then had an ADU, which they got by special permit, that they would then also be allowed to have a protected use ADU. So that would in effect allow 2 ADUs to be on a property. Some people on the committee were not concerned by that, and other people on the committee were concerned by that possibility of ADUs. And based on discussion, we decided to just go with the protected use ADU.
I know that Citizen Benka is here at the meeting, and I know that Dick is always looking for ways that people can game the system, and that sounds like a kind of a way of gaming the system. So, okay.
That was the concern.
All right. Thank you.
Jonathan, I just have a couple of quick a question and a comment. On the parking, I thought that we never did, through the history of our passage of ADU articles prior to this legal compliance, that we never did anything that required additional parking. Didn't we always say you build an ADU, but you still only have the standard 2 parking spaces that are required for single family homes?
I don't know, but I don't think so. I think that the ADU was considered an additional unit and that the parking requirement went along with that. But I don't know.
Yeah, my recollection, I mean, this is just maybe for presentation purposes at this point, that we never did, as a matter of policy, unlike other communities, look for added parking spaces if they met the basic requirement. Dick, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the history, Roger, but our focus at this go round was really compliance with the state regulations and the state statute. And the state regulations, for all intents and purposes, would not have allowed an additional parking space for the ADU
Right.
with the exception of a very small part of the town. And as Jonathan indicated, and it didn't make any sense really to try to carve out that small part of the town. At this go round, where our real focus was let's make sure as best we can that we comply with the state law and the state regulations as they are now.
So my only thought at this stage, I mean, it's clearly on a track to pass without dissent, is you might say for presentation purposes, that it, just to be accurate, that we didn't change anything at this late stage to comply with regulations. I think if you look back, you'll find that that the ADU article, as it passed in its two previous forms, never required any additional parking attributable to the ADU.
Yeah, I think you're correct about that. I'm just going to put this up. Here's the prior. You can see we previously said a single family property with a by right ADU will conform to parking requirements applicable to single family homes with no accessory dwelling unit, which is in effect what you said, Roger. For some reason, we deleted that and made it even clearer that simply said off-street parking is not required for protected use ADUs.
Yeah, because right now you can put an ADU on a 2 or 3 family property or a multifamily property, and this previous language doesn't cover that.
Yeah, so I think that was
yeah. So it's clarifying language, and that's
clarifying language. That's all.
Yeah. The other thing, it's just kind of curious in a way. As of right is a pretty strong hurdle when you put it in place compared with all kinds of processes. And then protected status is intuitively, it seems to be saying the same thing, but I'm guessing that, and I've characterized protected status is like as of right on steroids, or as of right multiplied by more. And if I'm correct, like one of the things that occurs to me, when developers want to have get around the FAR limits, they build, they'll put in raw unfinished space and then finish it out later. And now they could, as you mentioned, and I think Dick has expressed concern, they could build an ADU, which is 900 more square feet. But am I right that protected status goes beyond as of right, because it says that it's not even included in an FAR calculation, whereas if it's just as of right, it still would be subject to FAR.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things. The word protected use ADU is just a word that is used in the definition. So I think that's just a definitional word. I don't think it signifies anything different. It's just the title. It could be a XYZ ADU. It's called a protected use ADU, I think, to indicate the idea that it's protected. As relates to FAR, that is correct, that a protected use ADU is not taken into account in calculating the FAR. So a property that has, for example, an S5, right, that has 5,000 square foot allowable FAR and has a 5,000 square foot home, is now allowed to add a 900 square foot ADU to that home on the same lot.
Yeah, with no FAR. Because I know
with no FAR constraint, correct?
Yeah.
If they continue to use it as an ADU.
And as long as it's used as an ADU, right? So the concern that folks might have, which is reasonable, right, is what if they add that 900 square feet and then go in and knock out the kitchen and the bathroom and the doorway and just use it as a family room? That would be a workaround. It's impossible to completely police every situation, right? So I can't guarantee that would never happen, but we put in as many restrictions as we thought we could reasonably be allowed to have checks on that to ensure that the ADUs are used as ADUs, which is what we want to create more housing.
But unlike the height restriction that you discussed, which would be unenforceable, but still a little pebble in the pathway, this one actually would be enforceable. Whether they actually did enforce is another question. But so this is a public hearing. Is there any other comments that we would hear that members of the public who are the member of the public?
I think we only have one.
Mr. Benka, do you want to comment as a public hearing participant?
Nope, I'm fine. Thank you. And thank you, Jonathan, for your very clear explanation.
Thanks.
And let me just say thank you for running a collaborative process that brought us to this point.
Thanks for sticking with it, Dick. I know you had a long slog previously on the prior article, so here we are. I'll make a motion that the HAB adopt a recommendation to town meeting to support favorable action on Article 14, subject being ADUs. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Jonathan, good.
And I would like to, maybe you could amend the motion to say, including in the form that was attached in our materials, which includes the friendly amendments that have been accepted by the petitioner.
Well, since this meeting is recorded, Emily, are you good to go with that? Yes, okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Jonathan. The motion's been seconded, and so we'll take the vote. Bill?
I vote yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Mike, this is your last vote, I think now.
Yes.
Let's memorialize that.
Yeah. I'll abstain. No. Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yeah, we had a hearing last night on warrant Article 14, and we haven't yet voted, so I will abstain.
Okay, we'll take your support in spirit, if not in formality. Sean?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So we have a unanimous, with one abstention, vote of support for the third article. And it is shortly after 7. The only things that may be remaining briefly are other staff comments or reports or requests. Emily, anything that you've got further?
I don't think so. I think we covered it with Awana's announcement.
Mm-hmm. Any other updates from Iwana? Do you have anything else other than your announcement? You're muted. You're still muted.
Looking for the mouse.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens. I'm sorry. I have two screens open and the mouse goes all over the place. I'm sorry. You know what? I have checked in with BCDC and I'm just I have to review what they sent me, and I just hadn't had a chance because I got it yesterday and I hadn't had a chance to do it yet. To see how far they have gotten with the requests, what we were asking them to do, so we can go ahead with a contract with them. So I will have a better, I'll have a better report. And there's one thing, I did ask them about the CPA funds, and they still have, I think it's 600,000 they have left to spend on the
of CPA funds out of the 1.2 million.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that that is what the email stated. That they do have.
That's a bit of a
They
surprise.
do have some more to spend. That was since December, so they may have spent more since for the last report that they sent in. So they're working on it.
So for the benefit of HAB members, we did ask them to confirm that they would exhaust all of their 1.2 million of CPA committed funds in terms of reimbursable expenses before they began drawing on the 822,000 of supplementary HAB monies that we approved. That's number one. And number two, you recall that we attached several conditions to the use of the HAB funds. The main one, I think, being a report of a structural engineer that the building was suitable for the added infrastructure relating to solar panels on the roof, that solar equipment. And we did, I think, confirm that we want to have all of our conditions documented as fulfilled before they spend any of the money we committed, even if the money is earmarked or used for tasks that aren't directly related to the conditions. So we don't want them to spend money on the drainage, for example, or the walls. If the structural condition for the roof hasn't yet been fulfilled.
Right.
So hopefully everybody will agree with that, but we're, you know, we want to be pretty tight in our administration here.
When did we ask the structural question? Does anyone remember that?
This was in, I think it was February, March.
You did, Pam. That was
I
your.
did, but
Yeah.
I thought it was in February. It's just curious to me. It's almost the end of April and they don't
They
have.
they just sent me some information, Pam, and I'm
Okay,
sorry.
great.
I
It's
just
okay,
hadn't had
okay.
a chance to.
Not a problem.
I know you wanted to know, there's only so many structural engineers locally. You wanted to know who it was and that we.
Well, I also wanted to see the report.
Yeah, both, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, is there any other business before the HAB? Thank you very much. And Mike, we'll all see you in, with smiles and bells and, on the 6th.
And maybe I'll testify sometime before the HAB.
Right.
Yes.
Under oath.
We'll swear you in.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. The meeting
Thanks,
is
everyone.
adjourned.
Good night all.
Bye-bye, Mike.
Have a good night.